Now, all jokes aside and all animosity aside, I wonder to myself, what does Nick Sirianni do? What does he do at a high level? Because if Nick Sirianni,
Fair question.
Managed personalities.
if he were to get fired today we get the report that Nick Sirianni's fired.
Nobody
I don't
wants
think
him.
there's any NFL team that hires him as a head coach, number one, unless they're dumb. Number two, I don't think there's any team that hires him as an offensive coordinator to call plays. You look at the top coaches on the market right now, Mike McDaniel, Kevin Stefanski, Brian Flores, all of them can call a side of the ball at a high level. That's why they are wanted. What does Nick Sirianni do? He has been fortunate that Howie Roseman has built one of the most talented rosters over the past couple of years to where he has given him too much talent to fail. He has been fortunate that the front office has stepped in to hire coordinators when his have been disasters. The people he brought from Indianapolis, Steichen and Gannon, were fine.
Yes.
But then the next year we saw disaster. Brian Johnson, Sean Desai. They get Kellen Moore, Vic Fangio.
Brian
It works
Johnson's
out.
better than Patullo.
He was. And then we get Vic Fangio. He comes back this year. And then Kevin Patullo, Sirianni's guy, steps in and he's awful once again. Nick Sirianni has not shown the ability to pick coordinators. He does not call plays. He does nothing.
He's
50-50.
He's flipped on Nick for like the past.
And
honestly, you were saying he was better than Dan Campbell.
He was like, he's flipped so much on Nick, bro.
I'm gonna give him his credit for
Campbell.
Steichen. I'm gonna give him his credit for Gannon. I'm gonna give him his credit for Kellen Moore. I'm gonna give him his credit for Vic Fangio.
Why? Kellen Moore was a
He's
front office thing.
just getting paid the highest.
But I'll also say Fangio's not. It's like an easy decision for anyone to make. Yes, fine.
All of those, from what I'm reading on things that were reported, all of those were Eagles front office decisions. It wasn't.
He's a part of that.
It wasn't Nick Sirianni picking Vic Fangio, and that's who he picked. It was Howie Roseman saying, "These are the guys you're working with,
Vic Fangio,
and that's what you're getting."
We're not going to act like this was oh man, hopefully it works out. Like, this is one of the best defensive minds in the sport for
it was a home run
the entire time we've watched football.
Sure Nick is a part of the decision making. I'm not going to just say Howie just said we're going with these guys. He definitely talked to Nick about who he's going with.
No, I think that he is part of the conversations without a doubt, but I don't think that in those conversations after a down year, he had final say on the coordinators.
I mean, Kellen also got fired from Dallas.
Yeah, but Kellen Moore, he went to the Chargers and he had a good offense, and then they imploded because they were unhealthy. But when they were healthy, they played well.
In that too.
Yeah, but
Herbert just got hurt. That
no, but Kellen Moore, people were iffy on for a couple. They had high expectations for him,
and on Kellen Moore.
I'm in on him too, but they had expectations for him in Dallas. They underwhelmed. They let him go.
They had a top offense under him until he got hurt. I just the Dallas.
I don't think they let Kellen Moore go because of an underwhelming offense.
No, they let him go because it got stagnant and they wanted something.
I think that's when Mike McCarthy came in. I think it's new coaching staff.
That too.
Yeah, I think that their offense they just were losing the playoffs and he just knew. But Kellen Moore.
Well, wasn't he the one that called the left tackle ghost?
Yeah, he loves hitches too. I think Kellen Moore. For the most part, the front office was like, Howie Roseman was like, yo, these are the coordinators you're getting. You know, when he has picked his own, they have not worked out. First year, Steichen, Gannon, okay, you hit it out the park because you brought them from Indianapolis, and really you poached them from Frank Reich. Those are Frank Reich guys originally. But Nick Sirianni, I don't even think he manages personalities well. It's clear that A.J. Brown is not a big fan of him. It's clear that
Brown's not a big fan of anybody.
Yeah, I can't put too much on Sirianni when it comes to AJ.
It's clear that Jalen Hurts and him doesn't look like they get along the best, and that's their franchise quarterback. And Dan Campbell, while I do think that Nick Sirianni and Dan Campbell, they are like cut from the same cloth in terms of Dan Campbell is a managing personalities coach. Dan Campbell called plays this past year, and the Lions were pretty successful. Not to the point to where I'm viewing Dan Campbell highly as an offensive innovator, but he did call plays really well. And I do think that he's going to have that same problem next season if he doesn't pick the right coordinators to step in at OC and DC, because they had a disappointing year. But Nick Sirianni, I just don't think his personality meshes well with a lot of the players. And I just don't think, like, if he gets fired today, there is nobody out there that's going to go and try to get him to call plays for their team. And I think it hurts the offense entirely. The stubbornness has hurt the offense. And I don't even think the over-reliance on hitch and stop routes is the issue, because the 49ers were giving that up. Like, I know a lot of the percentages of yards came on those routes, but it's because the Niners were giving that up, like legitimately, and that's what was open. I just think that everything that they run is static and it's off of 4 verts. They don't do 3x1s, they don't motion out, they don't try to trick your defense at all. So if you can zone up and sit in certain gaps, there's just things that are not going to be there. Like the final Jalen Hurts interception, awful. Like triple coverage. Why would you throw that? But look everywhere else. It was. Oh, well, it felt like it. It felt like it. At least it was the end of the game. But the throw into triple coverage, like you look at anything else that went on the field, any other route, there was nowhere else to go with the ball. Like that,
everyone was covered.
Yes, that is how bad the Eagles' offensive infrastructure has been. But it's been like that all season, and that was always going to hold back the Eagles. And the only thing that was going to be their saving grace is if their defense can save them once again. But the Niners led a game-winning drive.
It did. I mean, Quinion had 2 interceptions, when the Niners were driving.
The defense did. You had an opportunity, game-winning drive to come down there and score, and you didn't score. I mean, for as much as Shanahan, he's great, awesome, one of the best coaches in football and stuff like that. You had an opportunity. You had an opportunity to go down there and drive. And, Saquon was running the ball well when he wasn't in shotgun. He was able to get some yards. Bigsby was able to get some yards. But it was penalties that hurt them, drops that hurt them, and then just their overall play calling. I'm down to fire Nick if you have a better option. Like, if you can get a better coach, I'm down to fire Nick. But I don't see a reason to fire Nick as long as you get the OC right. Like, if you get the OC right, there's no reason to fire Nick. Nick isn't. He's a problem, but you can win with him. We've shown that. You can win with him.
They're not going to fire him, but I think there's probably like 6 better options than him.
Probably market right now.
I think Stefanski's a better option.
But you can get that option. But if you don't get the OC right, I don't think it matters.
Why not hire Mike McDaniel and you keep Vic Fangio as your defensive coordinator?
You just don't need him making that decision. Like, he can stay. He can get it. He's earned another year.
Nick?
Yeah, he's earned another
but
year.
I think Joel's right. Like, if he got fired tomorrow, it's not like John Harbaugh. It's not like Stefanski.
He's the most fraudulent coach in the NFL right now. Like, you look at his win-loss record to start his career.
It's like the best ever.
He's up there with all-time greats, but he's nowhere near that level of coach.
He's coordinator dependent, and that's when you're like the CEO level of head coach. Things could fly off the rails quick. Like Dan Campbell was getting questioned earlier in the season. We've had these questions about Mike Tomlin. When you're the CEO level coach, if you're not an X's and O's guy, it's really hard sometimes to know your worth. Yep. Like, Tomlin's thing is, you have this floor. You're always going to be in the playoffs. I even think with Dan Campbell, he brought this like kind of fuck you attitude. And then this year he showed that we could call plays at a high level. But with Nick Sirianni, when you're not calling anything on offense, you're not calling anything on defense, it's just, all it is if you have a good coordinator, you can win the Super Bowl. If you're a bad coordinator, you can bounce in the first round. And if that's what like your baseline is, it's like, we have to do better. And this isn't just on Nick this game, right? Like this season as a whole is definitely like, Nick's a big part of this because he's the head coach. But I mean, AJ Brown had the worst game of his career. I'm an AJ Brown guy. It was fucking terrible. He had 3 brutal drops. Some of them could have turned into scoring drives and they just didn't. He had the deep ball on the left, on the middle of the field. He's AJ Brown. I'm not gonna lie. I thought all 3 of them he could have caught potentially. But one on the left side, one on the right side, and one over the middle of the field. I thought
the one on the right side was the one where I was like,
the one on the right side. It's AJ Brown. You have separation. It's both of your hands. Catch the ball.
Yeah.
Then I'm thinking of the one through the middle where he.
Yes, you're talking about the middle with the 2 defenders. That's a perfect pass.
It's a great pass, and I thought he could have caught that. I thought he could. And AJ Brown. Honestly, I remember saying it after the Super Bowl. I thought he was the best deep ball tracker in the league, and he just has not been that. We said it earlier this year. He lost half a step. Now after this game, I feel like he's lost a whole step. And
I think he's lost hands more than a step. He's getting there.
Yeah, it's tough, man. But I mean, I'm nuts. Honestly, this game was embarrassing for the Eagles.
He was open all 3 times.
This game was embarrassing. This was the 2nd lowest success rate any team has had against the San Francisco 49ers this year. The team that was worse was the Panthers in that Monday night game like a month or 2 back. It's terrible. Like, this is a 49ers team that was beaten to shreds defensively. They didn't get really any pressure on Jalen Hurts. It's not like Robert Saleh had all these exotic blitzes like
he had. In the pocket for 0 reasons.
Unfortunately, that's been just a downside to Jalen Hurts. It's kind of been an issue throughout his career in terms of not staying in the pocket when the pocket's been pretty for him. It's an embarrassing loss. Like, you were by far and away more talented on both sides of the ball. This was a defense that I think did its job. You forced Brock Purdy into 2 pretty terrible turnovers. He did have, some really great throws in this game. I'm not saying Brock Purdy was like played bad or anything. But I mean, you had 2 huge plays by Quinion that could have flipped the game if you just go down and score a damn touchdown, and you could have moved the ball against a defense that was bottom 3 in the NFL in e-paper play and success rate this year. There's going to be changes coming. Coordinator's going to change for the best. And what's I think encouraging is that the offense is sexy. So Mike McDaniel, whoever, Mike LaFleur, whoever it might be that you want to bring in to be this offensive coordinator, you're going to have good options.
Is Lane coming back next year?
That's a big question. I don't know.
It seems like every year he flirts. Cam Jurgens came into the season off back surgery. Landon Dickerson played the entire season injured.
I'm not mad at Landon. I think Landon will be fine.
No, agreed. No doubt.
Stinks.
And then Mailata wasn't the player that he was last year, which was unfortunate. I do just think next season, Cam gets healthier. Landon gets healthier. Lane, you just hope and pray to the good Lord he wants to give it one more chance. Then I'm with you. I think
it is sexy. 38.
Say it one more time.
Packers could play for a little bit longer.
That's true. Sure. I just think that like the next offensive coordinator, I know the dream for a lot of Eagles fans is Mike McDaniel, but Mike McDaniel also has to view Jalen Hurts as a quarterback that can run his offense.
I was about to say that.
Tua is a very different quarterback than Jalen Hurts. Like Tua is a point and shoot quarterback. He's going to have one of the fastest time throws in the NFL. That is really not something that Jalen Hurts is when it comes to just quick rhythm and timing. That's more Jared Goff style. So if Mike McDaniel is picking between the Eagles or the Lions,
in the middle of the field,
like he's looking at the Lions and saying Jared Goff can probably fit my offense better. So I think who they get at coordinator will also be revealing in what type of offense they want to run and what they want Jalen Hurts and what they're going to ask him to do. Mm-hmm. Because I feel like there's just a lot of conflicting reports. I know that LaShawn McCoy on his show with Emmanuel Acho came out and said that there are people within the building that feel like Jalen Hurts cannot run all the stuff that they expect him to run.
There are people that said that he doesn't like all the motion stuff, and Aaron Rodgers is the same way though. Aaron Rodgers doesn't like a lot of motion. He kind of likes to see the field.
The thing is, and this is the thing that bothers me and what Eagles fans fail to realize, or not fail to realize, but they're just so oblivious to. Jalen, when you have guys in the league, top guys that can make every throw on the field, they take risk. Jalen Hurts to me feels robotic in the sense of where he does not take risk. He's sometimes if he feels like this is too risky or I shouldn't make this throw, he's not going to do it. He's either going to run, throw it out of bounds, or take the check down.
Can I disagree?
You can't unless you watch the game.
Yesterday's game, he took 2 risks on back-to-back plays, and A.J. Brown.
Is that a risk or is it just A.J. Brown's down there?
That wouldn't you call that a risk?
No, because A.J. Brown was open. I'm talking about like risk where you have a 50-50 ball.
No, it wasn't. I would argue both of those were 50-50.
Not when the push off and he had the wide open and then the one down the middle. I don't think so.
The one down the middle, there was 2 guys there. Jalen just put a perfect ball.
A.J. Brown beat them.
Jalen put a perfect ball with 2 defenders on A.J.'s hip.
A.J. Brown, first of all, no, neither one of them was on A.J. Brown's hip.
What are you talking about?
Once he lost the ball, he literally was wide open.
What
the one down the middle?
I thought all 3 of them were super catchable for A.J. Brown.
Like, what are we talking about?
They all were catchable.
Super catchable, yeah.
Yes, what are you talking about?
I'm saying how the defenders were still right there on him. Jalen just put a great ball.
I don't agree with that at all.
Jalen put 2 great balls for AJ. AJ didn't do his job.
To agree with both of you, I think it depends. I think Jalen Hurts is aggressive against certain coverages. If he's seeing single high, he is hitting his receiver on the one-on-one.
It's A.J. Brown, and he knows A.J. Brown's going to get open. He's going to throw
defenders in that one play to AJ over the middle.
I think Jalen Hurts' issue is that when he sees
there's a reason why he doesn't turn the ball
coverage,
over,
when he sees 8 defenders in coverage and he needs to make throws that fit in between gaps or zone defenders,
he doesn't do it.
He's not anticipating at a high level or consistently enough.
He doesn't do it.
I feel like, I watched the game this morning and I did come away with like less anti-Jalen Hurts stuff than
yesterday you were bugging out.
More like just Eagles offensive infrastructure stuff. But here's the thing though. I bugged out because, and it's funny how ironic it is and how things come full circle, because all the top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL at one point, at least some of them, they have been in situations offensively that they've had to carry and they've had to put on their backs. a lot of Eagles fans,
Joe Burrow?
their big argument offensive line took one of the worst offensive lines to the Super Bowl into the AFC Championship.
And kind of a mid-run game.
No run game at all,
They
really.
have Jamar Chase and T. Higgins.
Yeah,
I mean, I understand, but he's seeing too high. He's not seeing too high.
What I think Joel's getting at is the Eagles situation has been borderline perfect for
And
3
Joe
years.
Burrow is making every throw on the field. He's not.
But that's not.
Never mind. He's
And defense
an elite
They
quarterback.
carried in the Super Bowl.
They did Super
Well,
Bowl
they had
for sure.
turnovers, but Joe Burrow had 2 game-winning drives.
matter.
Yeah, but Joe Burrow had 2 game-winning drives.
Brother, you're taking possessions away from the other team.
But still, outside the Chiefs game, they were locking up.
Yeah, but he played well.
And the kicker was on go.
And then especially in the second AFC Championship run, he played well too.
I'm not going to say he carried, but I get what you're saying.
Ultimately, they carry their offensive situations is what I'm saying.
At least in the regular season, though, at minimum, postseason fair.
They carry their offensive situations. Sure. It's not they carry teams. You're responsible for your side of the ball. And most of the top quarterbacks, they are able to consistently produce top 5 offenses in the NFL. And Eagles' reasoning for Jalen Hurts being an elite quarterback is he wins, right? And when he doesn't win, we see all of this context being used for him that is not used for any other quarterback. Why is Jalen Hurts over Josh Allen in the offseason, according to some Eagles fans? It's because he wins.
Yep.
And Josh Allen has failed to find a way to win.
Yep.
Ignoring the defense giving up touchdowns late, ignoring all of the things that goes against Josh Allen. But now that Jalen Hurts is the victim of an offensive situation that is not ideal, but is still better than 80% of the league, now the losses aren't on him. And that is what I'm getting at. And it is a clear gap between the quality of quarterback that Jalen Hurts is and the quality of quarterback even a Dak Prescott is. Dak Prescott consistently has elevated his offensive situation year in and year out.
All right.
I mean, postseason is different, but regular season,
you're not about to tell me the Eagles with this offense and Dak Prescott's not top 10.
First of all, what we're not going to do is scream about hypotheticals. That doesn't matter. What we're not going to do is scream about the most irrational fan base probably in sports history, and that is the Philadelphia Eagles.
What's a fact?
And what we're not going to do is act like Dak has nobody. Well, that's what we're not going to do.
What's a fact is
because
that
Dak does. First of all,
he played with
He's played with Amari Cooper.
No, I'm not saying he hasn't had nobody.
CeeDee Lambs and George Pickens. He's not.
And what did he do? He put up an MVP like season.
There's a middle ground between.
Win.
There's a middle ground between uplifting and carry. Like there has to be a middle ground.
Yes. His first playoff game ever, he got sold by his defense.
I'm not. I think regular season I'm with Joel.
I'm not saying
regular season I'm with you. It's just in the playoffs, Jalen Hurts has had those moments.
The Niners versus Purdy, he was horrendous.
No, he didn't play well. I'm not saying he did. But ultimately, I'm not even saying Dak hasn't played with talent. But when he has played with talent, you best damn believe that the Cowboys are a top 5 offense in the NFL.
They always put top offenses.
For what it's worth, when Dak had Kellen Moore, he had a more productive passing offense than Jalen Hurts with Kellen Moore. And Jalen Hurts had an all-time running back and 2 great wide receivers. And at that time with Kellen Moore, it was just CeeDee Lamb and like Tony Pollard and Jake Ferguson. And don't get me wrong, they're fine, but it's not the same level of talent that the Eagles play with. What I'm saying is that Jalen Hurts is a solid quarterback. That is it. And it is clear that he needs a lot of things catered to him, and he can't elevate a situation as much as these other quarterbacks do.
Jalen Hurts a Bo Nix
situation.
Jalen Hurts a Bo.
Why are you talking about Dak?
Wait, what?
That's not elevating any situation.
Yes, he is.
He had 5 drops on 3rd down yesterday.
What is that?
I mean, yesterday's game
That's elevated multiple situations.
It's a hard game to look at.
Dak has had. First of all, let's be clear. What is your definition of elevated?
What do you mean by elevating? Like just them being top 5 in offense?
Yeah, my definition of elevating is an offense that probably shouldn't be ranked highly is consistently ranked highly because you have a certain guy.
What year in Dak's career shouldn't they have been ranked highly?
2023.
Who was on that roster?
CeeDee Lamb when he had 1,700.
That's because
there was nobody else.
There's nobody else on the team.
But that has nothing to do with the statement.
But
Jake Ferguson was solid that season.
I think when comparing that to this Eagles team.
Of course.
I think that's what the argument is.
But also, it's still CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah,
for sure. But it's like, it's A.J. Brown, it's Smitty, it's an offensive line who weren't great this year, but this wasn't the Chargers offensive line. And you have Saquon. You know what I mean? Like,
but I'm going blandly off of his statement. It's not like they were not talented.
No.
We saw CeeDee Lamb put on an all-time great
Elevating
season.
is not you lead a team to the Super Bowl because there's more things that go into
I
it
agree,
than wins and
wholeheartedly.
losses. Elevating is you're making the most at the very least of your offensive situation.
But they didn't have a bad offense, man. Like if you would have said
over the last 2 years, can you tell me the passing offense for the Eagles? Jalen Hurts has made the most of the passing offense.
I think if you was to use guys like Lamar, who doesn't have any type of receiver run, and we can all admit the O-line is a little bit overrated just because of how good he is. Fine. If you talk about Josh Allen last 2 years, fine. Mahomes last 2 years, fine. If you're gonna sit here and throw names at me that have those and wide receivers,
those are all
it's hard for me.
I also think it's fine that Joel's doing this because I do think Dak Prescott is notoriously underrated.
I'm drawing a line at a certain guy.
We all view him as a top 10 guy. The reason why he's underrated is because he doesn't win in the playoffs.
Sure, but we all had Hurts over Dak coming into this year.
I know.
I did.
I had Dak like 8 or 9.
Okay.
I know Dak was top 10 for me.
I think he was
top 10 for everybody.
He should be, at least.
But honestly, we would have been having this argument last season if it wasn't for how great the defense and the run game were in the first couple rounds of the playoffs.
Yes.
Because Jalen Hurts was struggling, but they won. So in the NFC Championship game, he was fucking awesome. In the Super Bowl, he was fucking awesome. So it kind of all got swept under the rug. But I don't think you're wrong because for the last 2 seasons, this offense has been underwhelming. Yeah. Especially when you look at last year, the passing offense, I should say, because obviously last year they won a historic year. But last year when it's like the offensive line's elite, Kellen Moore, we all view at a minimum above average play caller, elite weapons, elite run game. And it was like a bottom 10 passing game. And I think a lot of Eagles fans that year said, well, our defense is so good and our running game is so good that we don't need it. Valid. You won the Super Bowl. What the fuck can I say? But this year, that wasn't the case. The defense, was always good. In the second half, it became elite again. The run game wasn't as great, and the offensive line is great. When you're Jalen Hurts, who has proven himself in this league, you got paid. This is your time where you got to step the fuck up. When you're going up against the 49ers team, who had been scoring whatever, but you could move the ball consistently. Everyone was able to do it all season long. And that was the outcome. And again, I get A.J. Brown wasn't his best game. You had some drops. But all season long, it was like this. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't just this one-off thing where this was a top 10 offense, and then this week is just a...
why didn't Dak elevate against the Niners?
No, like I said,
season, why didn't Dak elevate against Green Bay before they started getting their ass?
I agree with that. I will agree. More often than not, Dak has sold in the playoffs. I will say, off this game, which is what we should be evaluating on this podcast today, Jalen Hurts is not the guy that we should be saying needs to do more.
He's one of.
He's not. He definitely has to do more.
In this game that we just watched, that's all I'm saying.
He wasn't great. He wasn't great.
I shake hand right now. Yeah. If you want to talk this season,
he should have
fair. Yesterday's game, I'm pointing the finger at A.J. Brown. You are supposed to be a top 5 receiver in this game. Before this season, people had you top 3. If you even entertain the idea of Puka Nacua being better than him, people called you a casual. For you to go out there and put this performance forward, I'm sorry, but it is unacceptable.
Yes.
You're supposed to be one of the leaders. You really vocalize so often that you need the ball in your hands.
It's a bad look.
And in this situation, your quarterback now is taking shots on your behalf. People are talking about Jalen Hurts when really should be talking about A.J. Brown. 5 drops on 3rd down. That's nuts.
Well, Jalen wasn't that good yesterday.
Jalen wasn't the best version of himself by any means.
Like, they all should get blamed.
But 5 drops, and these were all big drops.
Here's the thing, though, is that their offensive showing against the 49ers, this was a team that just let up almost 40 against the Bears a couple weeks ago.
The Colts. Rivers is moving up.
Dotting them.
Struggled against
one
of the worst defenses in the league with the worst pressure in the playoffs.
Yo, he's dog shit.
Yo,
I
bro,
don't want to hear nothing about him.
Can I please? I was wrong in my placement. I wasn't even trolling, by the way. I was dead fucking serious. Y'all constantly overrate this fucking guy, and he's mid. 14.
CJ shot 3 turnovers through 2 quarters, basically.
14.
Yeah.
Put Davis Mills in, man.
Deadass. Jesus
14.
Christ.
Said I was trolling. You said I was dumb.
I'll be honest.
Bryce Young.
I'll be honest.
Watch it.
That interception was nuts.
Why are you?
I don't know why he did that.
That
he didn't catch.
That's
it.
a pick.
Fuck.
That's a pick. To Eccles. To fucking Eccles.
He's good though. Respect him.
Just win the game.
He's been good. He's been good.
We'll have a conversation later.
The Niners had Jalen Hurts. He had a 16% pressure rate in this game. That's nothing.
I can't believe that.
He had
I should
he
say.
had 4.37 seconds time to throw. At some point,
Was he one?
even if
Damn.
there's nothing there, you're that guy. Everybody says you are. You got to make something happen. Just like they say for everybody else who is a
I'm
guy.
not gonna be like, oh
He's
my
not a guy.
god,
Bro,
stop
he had
it.
4.3
He's not a guy.
7 seconds time to
Fine.
throw.
I'm not gonna say
You can't tell me someone can't get open in almost 5 seconds.
Were they?
There were definitely windows he could have
your route concept
anticipated.
is the same route concept all year.
Some of the biggest throws that he made yesterday were drops.
If all
Some
those
of his best
True.
throws,
It's true.
these were game-changing throws,
yes,
were drops.
yes. If all those things get caught, what does he have? Like 240?
But the
win the
game's
game.
240 is
They win the game.
not bad.
Yeah, no.
I'm not here writing
Against-
home about
But
it.
against this Niners defense, I mean,
Okay.
come on, they're really bad.
And Joel, I'm here agreeing with you. What they did yesterday was unacceptable, all in all. Even if those
And
those
this was
were
a game
completed.
that Saquon had 100.
But it is a bigger issue than just the quarterback.
No. I'm not saying
That's
it's not.
what I'm
I
saying.
mean, it's an issue all around. But I think that we can
You're
also
just trying to be fair in relative conversations.
we can also just we can't say that
Mhm.
they run this stuff that Hurts hates, right? Because part of the reason they're shocking a lot is because of Hurts.
Is he injured? I'm really going to keep
I don't
harping
think
on
he's
this.
injured.
This knee injury, he's not running.
They just
But
don't run.
it was
with
kind of
bro.
like it last year, but last year we thought he was injured. He kind of just lost a step, man. Like he's just not as fast and athletic as I think he once was.
That knee injury, I think he just has not looked back.